So last time we talked about how our physics became philosophy and why that's a problem for understanding the whole of reality. In this video, I want to expand on that a little bit more to explain how it also affects our understanding of free will, consciousness, and artificial intelligence. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm old enough to remember two previous AI winters. AI winters are when interest and funding for AI start to dwindle. And I believe we're at the beginning of that right now, the beginning of the end for this current round of AI enthusiasm. I will be linking to a video probably on model collapse. It'll be in the description below, because I don't want to get into it. It's a long subject, and there are plenty of people who are talking about it. All right. In the late 70s, this book came out, 1979, and the year I graduated from college. And this was during one of the AI winters. Gödel, Escher, Bach by Douglas Hofstadter was a very popular book. He explains in the first half of the book basically that because of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, we couldn't achieve artificial intelligence or true intelligence using machines. He spends the second half of this book wishing that wasn't so, and he was very hopeful that we would come up with some understanding of the brain to understand consciousness, and we would overcome Gödel's incompleteness theory. He uses set theory to explain it. Who knew that set theory would be useful for something? Okay. Anyway, so fun book, lots of fun things in it. But I think we're going to experience a third AI winter now in the next couple years. So, but then I saw a video by Sabine Hassenfelder, one of my favorites. I love her, even when I disagree with her. And she's thinking about AI and how it's still going to happen because our brain is a machine, and therefore we can build a machine that will have real intelligence. Now, I love Sabina, but this is just not going to happen. She's right in her video about some things, and she's not right about other things. So we're going to kind of separate them out, where she's right and where she's wrong. Well, we're going to separate out the issues in this video, okay? Not so much where she's right and where she's wrong, but where her thinking is a little confused, okay? And I don't blame her. It's a very confusing topic. So let's look at that.
Beyond. You see, the way we learn physics in school, it's about things, electric circuits, atoms, planets. We don't think of physics as something that's about us. But if you study physics, there's a point where I think everyone realizes it's very much about us. Physics tells us how the universe works fundamentally, what the laws of nature are that everything obeys. And that includes the stuff that we are made of. So it includes us. Humans ultimately are big bags of particles, and we know the equations that those particles obey. Yes, there are a lot of these particles in humans, and the result is complicated. We don't use physics to describe it because that's impractical. But that doesn't change the fact that deep down, we're all particles.
So the first thing I want to say about this little clip is that I do it too. We call subatomic particles call them particles, but I don't think anybody thinks of them as particles anymore, but waves. But how do you say waves? We're made of waves. We don't think that way, but it's just an interesting language issue that we have now. It's kind of anachronistic. We need another word for particles. We just don't have one. So, and and waves doesn't work because waves gets us confused with sound waves, ocean waves. It's just too generic a term. So we need something else. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about free will and determinism. She's a determinist. That means, and if you listen to the whole video, she says that because of the initial conditions of the Big Bang, if we had enough time and the right equations, we could figure out everything about our physical universe and even about us and how we choose to do things. Okay, that we don't have a free choice. We're kind of forced into everything that we do. Okay, so I'm going to be reading out of this book. This is Mortimer J. Adler, 10 Philosophical Mistakes. All right, he's saying, prior to the end of the 19th century, determinists held that all the phenomena of nature are governed by causal laws through the operation of which effects are necessitated by their causes. Nothing happens by chance, in that sense of the term, which regards a chance event as something uncaused. In their view, an intrinsically unpredictable free choice is exactly like a chance event and so cannot occur within the natural domain. All right, we've talked about this before. There's nothing but the physical part of reality. There is no immaterial part of reality to determinists. And so we talked about this in the last video, how gradually the immaterial or the supernatural world was, and I don't like to use the word supernatural because it implies something other than reality. All right, something beyond reality. Okay, I prefer to use the words material and immaterial. Our material world refers to the particles, which we now know are not particles but are waves, and the immaterial world is to those things that exist beyond the material world. And we don't know the relationship between the material and in the immaterial world. All right, we just don't know how that barrier is crossed. So then a little bit further on, when quantum physics came around, there was this idea that because of the laws of quantum physics, where there was some indeterminacy, that this somehow meant that there could be some chance, random, free will kind of thing. Okay, but this also was a confusion. So this has been dismissed now by even by physicists, that we're back to this idea that everything is determined, or that we are biological machines, so everything that we do is determined by our body chemistry and our reaction with the physical world. Now, the thing is those of us who propose free will, that we still have free will, and on all the writers that come before us, is that of course there are some things that we are pressured into doing. Let's say pressured into doing by our senses. Okay, we get hungry, so we're going to eat. We don't really have a free will in the idea whether we're going to eat or not. All right, so there's always this idea that our intellect and our free will are not material things, they are immaterial things. This is why we're able to push aside our hunger to continue to do something, to work on something, for example, that we have a choice and continue to work on something until our body just overrules our intellect and says, you can't do that anymore. You have to go eat. All right. So in that way, yes, we don't have any free will about whether we eat or not, for example, but we do have free will of what we want to think about and what we want to work on. Now, the thing that Mortimer J. Adler took to task was not whether you could believe in free will or not believe in free will. He thought that you couldn't prove one way or the other whether we had free will or not. But what he was saying is that for those who believed in free will, the idea is not that free will means randomness or chance. It doesn't mean that. Free will means your intellect and your will are still causally determined, just by different rules, immaterial rules, not by physical rules. So I'm going to read another passage from here to help clarify this. The will, as they conceive it, that is, those who believe in free will, is an intellectual, not a sensuous, appetite or faculty of desire and decision. In their view, the human mind, consisting of both intellect and will, is to be sharply distinguished from the senses, the memory, the imagination, and the passions. The latter may operate according to the same principles and laws that govern all other phenomena of the physical world, but the intellect and the will, being immaterial, do not act in accordance with these principles and laws. They are governed by laws of their own. And then he goes on to explain a little bit about what those laws of the immaterial are. All right. Another interesting thing about Mortimer J. Adler, at this time he was an atheist. All right. He did actually become a Catholic. And there's a thought out there that if you believe in objective thought or objective values of any sort, you will eventually end up believing in God. Okay. So it's probably not a great surprise that he eventually became a Christian. But what he's referring to here is the hard, what we call the hard problem of consciousness, and it hasn't been resolved by anyone really. And you see this even in Sabine's video, because eventually she says that in order, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this determinism? That everything I do is a result of the physical world acting on me. Or she says, well, you have to make choices about what you read and what you listen to and so forth and so on. Well, these are intellectual choices. This is exactly what Adler is talking about. He's talking about the fact that the intellect is separate from the physical causality around you, okay? And that you can make decisions about what you read and what you input, and it will affect your brain, okay? That nobody in the free will camp believes that there's not good and bad sources of intellectual material out there. It's just that you have to make a decision about whether you believe in it or not. All right. And that's part of your intellect and your free will in choosing what you want, what you believe is correct. You can't not, when she says in the video too herself, she says, you can't not see what I said. So I know what she said. What she said is what she believes is true. Okay. So my intellect is not going to deny that I saw her do the video, but I can decide for myself whether I agree with her or not. That's free will. And she can believe that she's totally driven by physical causality. I just don't believe that. You can see how this relates to AI. We still have the hard problem of consciousness. I know the next phase of this AI is they're going to try to expand the senses of the machine, that it can taste and hear, and I don't know how they're going to make it feel, but those, again, are sensory things are just going to be another part of physical reality. It's not going to have anything to do with intellect or free will. So there we are.
A lot of people strongly reject the idea that their behavior is determined by the laws of physics. And the reason this becomes more relevant each day is that this is the reason why they're also convinced that a computer system, which they accept is determined by the laws of physics, will never acquire human-like cognitive abilities. They think there's something special going on in our brains that microchips can't do, something more than just particles. But more than this, there is nothing.
Okay, so you see that we're just talking past each other. And I think part of the problem of those who believe in free will is that they continue to argue in the physical realm instead of insisting on talking about the immaterial world, all right, the immaterial part of reality. I just don't think you're going to make any headway if there's no ability to cross that divide. And again, this is the problem of so little, traditional philosophy being taught in the schools. We're not clear about what we're arguing about. But the good news, I think, here is that the hard problem of consciousness points to a higher level of existence, or at least the immaterial world. I'm not sure which if one is higher than the other. We tend to think of the immaterial world as higher and the material world lower. Who knows, right? They're all part of the same reality. We're the ones who distinguish between the two. It doesn't mean that there is a distinction between the two. We just don't know. And I have said that the material and the immaterial are all part of reality. You don't know how they intersect, but they do intersect. And we talked about this a little bit as the vertical plane and the horizontal plane. And we'll get into more of that, how even our own brain is divided up into thinking in a vertical and a horizontal. People don't like to talk about the immaterial world because they think you're going to be talking about, like, I don't know, like you were abducted by a space alien, all right? It's just, or you're crazy, or you have mental problems or something. I mean, we've really narrowed our discussion of reality, and yet we are constantly confronted with the reality of the hard problem of consciousness. However, I do believe with Sabine that we should make the most of what we're given, and we should be careful as to what we consume.
Ultimately, the way I dealt with it was to ask, well, if I'm just a machine running some algorithm, then what do I do with this knowledge? I think I should use it wisely. I'm here to find useful information and do something with it. You could say I'm determined to make sense of it. And what's the problem with that?
I think we both can agree to that. I just believe that it's a free choice, and I think that she in some way believes that too. She just doesn't accept the possibility of an immaterial part of reality, and that makes the discussion very difficult.
Sometimes people misunderstand scientific facts, but sometimes they don't accept facts because they're hard to cope with. And maybe the way to deal with it is not by hitting them over the head with more facts, but helping them cope. So if you've struggled with this too, maybe this helps a little.
And who could argue with that thought? This is why I love Sabine. All right, that's all for now. See you next time.